All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Craig Peterman, the program delivery partner for Wisconsin for the first Lego League programs, both Challenge and Explore. And hopefully everybody here is expecting to hear about the Explore program this upcoming season. If there are questions about Challenge, we'll be more than happy to answer them at the end. But today is predominantly talking about Explore. I do see some familiar names and experienced coaches on the call, which is great because, to be totally honest, well, the three of us, and we got Jay Church and Brian Farrell, who are head judge, head referee for the Challenge program. We're all relatively new to the Explore program as well. So it's good that we've got some experienced coaches on here who can answer any questions that come from new coaches, which is exactly the purpose of these these Zoom calls. And just a reminder, you all got the notification when you signed in. This is being recorded, and Jay will put it up on the Wisconsin FLL YouTube channel, shortly afterwards, and it will be accessible from there. So, let's get into some real quick administrative issues about the season. We will be publishing and I'll call it preliminary FLL Challenge schedule this week. We got final confirmations of venues. Just Friday, I guess, was the last one. So we will be publishing that this week. That's important to this crew and this program, Explore, because a lot of the tournament directors have expressed desire, interest to host Explore festivals at the same tournament. So that means we will have multiple opportunities in the fall for Explore teams to participate in their own festival. With regards to the Challenge tournament directors, I've asked them to consider do they have the space? And then we will find the festival coordinators, we will find the volunteers outside of the actual Challenge volunteers, because both programs do require different needs, and we want the Challenge tournament directors to obviously focus on the Challenge tournament. But if they can provide the space for Explore, awesome. That would be great. Makes the event just that much bigger and that much more chaotic for what it's worth. So pay attention to the newsletter on Thursday. It will not define which ones will be Explore events. That still has to be worked out with the Challenge tournament directors, but it will at least give you an outline of what might be coming. And the Challenge tournament schedule starts the first week of November on the weekend. I believe it's November 4th. And then basically goes every weekend through December, not including Thanksgiving, of course, not including Christmas, or New Year's. And then the championship for Challenge will be in January, and we expect to have another Explore festival at that championship in Madison. So all those scheduling details will be out on Thursday. Any questions on that particular issue? All right.
So just for grants,
Yep.
Who's the credit union that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
He muted.
What? I didn't hear the question.
He muted, so I suspect it was background conversation.
Very good. All right. What else was I going to say? Oh, well, the good news on the Explore front is that Team Hazmat out of Brookfield, I've been in touch with them to start coordinating the volunteers. For those of you that aren't aware, FTC, the First Tech Challenge, is one of the high school programs, and they've stepped up and already started doing some research on how they're going to help support the Explore program this year. And so just, again, a little bit of background. Was Explore in Wisconsin had always been a regional, local type event where basically the local teams would be putting on their own type of program, their own festivals. This year, I was hoping, and still am expecting, that we're going to put a little more structure around it, a little more excitement, give the kids more opportunities to present their stuff. And as we all know, that does require additional resources and volunteers. So again, thank you, Hazmat, for stepping up. And another team, Mr. Cod, that out of Madison, that happens to be my son's team. They're also going to be helping out at Explore events. So we've got a lot of coordination to do in that regard, but I'm excited that we're starting off with a really solid volunteer base. On the cost front, talking to various people around the country, as well as, of course, in the state of Wisconsin, it seems that $25 registration entry fee for these festivals is a appropriate number, not too much, not going to break the budget. But on the other hand, there are resources to be paid for to put on the festivals. And so those that do coordinate all of that would be, the recipient of part of that registration fee. Badger Bots is a coordinator. We also have expenses. So $25 seemed like a reasonable amount. Those of you that are new to the Explore program, these festivals run anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. They can be self-contained, even though we're going to still have them at challenge tournaments. But they'll have their separate space, their separate awards ceremony. But again, it'll be nice to maximize the space during the challenge tournaments. So that's kind of where we're headed into the fall. And while we're putting that together piece by piece, we're still thinking about the spring. And so I won't go into great detail about that, other than I am aware of at least 3 festivals that will occur in the spring. So if you don't feel like you're ready to participate in the fall, don't worry, there will be opportunities in the spring. However, again, each of these festivals is going to be subject to some kind of a constraint on the number of teams that can participate. So I don't want to say it's a gamble, because we are providing a lot of opportunities, but depending on the number of teams that actually sign up and register, I guess it could be a gamble. So pay attention to the weekly newsletter that will give the details as they come forward. And then that will also include how do you register your team for those particular events. And it will be kind of different event to event. So the details certainly matter. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment. Brian, Jay, anything?
Jen, I was going to say, Jen, in the chat, you had put in about your one at Park Middle School, Logan Park Middle School. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, Park Middle School.
Yeah, sure. So over in Brookfield, we had already planned to do an expo of our own, simply because schedule would be in this that for came about. But if you are sure, at least how I run my teams, we start September 7th and we finish up November 9th, and then we have the payoff November 14th. So it's a very short, complete season for the teams. If you're interested in doing a short season and you think you'll be ready by the 14th, you're welcome to join. We'll have room for another 5 teams because we'll be in the library. But it looks exactly like a regular expo, just sized for a library versus a gym, and usually a parochial schools, smaller venue. But we had a fun time last year. So if there's any interest in there, let me know. I'll only be on for part of the call today, but always welcome to reach out if you'd like.
And real quick, Craig, there's another question.
Yep.
Is it $25 per team or per
Per team? Yep, per team. So we're right now, BadgerBots is revamping the registration system for Challenge. Because last year's system was, well, arguably rather inefficient. And so hopefully we can make that a better experience. And then we will just apply that to the Explore program. For all new coaches, hopefully you have the links on firstinspires.org bookmark. You've got the engineering notebook. You've got the, what am I missing? Not the robot game, but, team meeting guides. Again, those are not the end all be all of everything, but at least it would give you a good structure to start with as you craft your season. So, so other than that, we're going to open this up for questions, whether it be specific to team related issues or season related issues.
There's one more question we have here. Is it expected that Explorer teams only participate in one festival? Sign up for more.
That's a really interesting question that I actually thought about earlier today, because teams will be at different points of the season depending on when the festivals actually occur. There is no advancement to a championship, so I don't see any reason why they couldn't compete at multiple festivals. However, I will say my bias would be to give a team that has not been able to participate the first right of first refusal before we start letting teams go in a second time.
I've just at a festival before where there's been a team that went twice, once in the fall, and then they went back, revamped based on feedback, and came back in the spring. It's not unheard of. Those teams are typically extremely motivated to do something technically challenging with their team. So it is kind of fun to see that come back, but it's not a requirement because, as Craig said, there is no advancement in Explore, just in Challenge. So it'd really just be an experience for your team to iterate on their existing concept.
Mm-hmm.
But the feedback would be exactly the same, just for clarity, because the feedback is standardized at the expo by first.
Yep. Which is actually already at that same resource page that I referred to earlier. That the way the reviewers have their rubric and just go through it step by step when asking questions and challenging the teams.
Craig, this is Amjad. I just think that we need to have that included in the registration so that you're aware whether it's the first iteration or the second run for a team when they register.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So to get the registration up and running efficiently, we have to know where the tournaments are or the festivals are in the first place. And so that teams can pick the one as opposed to just, typing it in and making one up. So somehow we can, or at least I hope we can figure out, is this the first festival, or are they, trying to get into another one, third one, whatever. So we're going to try and put up some controls in that process. All right. Anything else from the chat room? Any questions there, or we get address those?
Rolling back through. I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
Hey, Craig, I'd like to mention that I tried to accept the permissions on First Inspires for my expo, but it won't allow me to accept. And I have some customers already. So if we could get that resolved, that'd be awesome.
Which
Because then we can just do it right through the tool.
Which system are you referring to?
The First Inspires system is giving me an error that says error while processing the request. Please try again. And I've tried several times and it won't let me do it. So I don't know, Brian, I know that you run several of these, maybe there's some kind of training that needs to be taken for the festival owners that is separate for Explore.
Are you talking about VIMs or you?
VIMS, yeah.
Volunteer? Okay,
Yes, VIMS, I'm supposed to be a festival owner on VIMS, yes.
So VIMs, so in VIMs, you need to make her the volunteer coordinator, or she can't get in.
okay.
Awesome, thanks, Brian.
Yep. I had the same problem. He already took care of me though.
Mhm.
I bugged him earlier.
So I
Ah,
can answer Philip's question in the chat. As a new team, how long should we wait till our first event? I think it's just a question of how organized you feel your team is, and you'll never feel like they're organized because they're all 5-year-olds, right? So you'll never feel comfortable. But I think that if you guys have run through your presentation and everybody knows what they're talking about, they're ready for an expo. As far as seeing an event, the teams need to allow your team or you to enter into the judging room with them. Otherwise, the expo itself is completely open from activities, viewing different teams' posters and models and stuff like that. Just in the judging room, it's more private, at least historically. Philip, does that answer your question? Okay. But either way, my first season, we actually went in the spring and didn't realize there was an expo that we needed to be prepared for. So we had gone through the 12-week model, and we were able to pull it together in 9 and still make the expo. You just figure out how to modify the schedule to meet the expo. So if you guys need some sort of an expedited expo ready schedule, I have my kids doing 9 weeks, like I said, and I'm certainly willing to share that with you if you guys are interested.
And actually, I'll remind everybody that Jen and I think was it Peggy? You guys did a Explore 101 session that should be posted on the YouTube channel. So that was a great hour crash course of for new coaches. It got very high reviews. So I encourage everybody to go take a look at that if you've got general questions about coaching an Explore team.
And I see Shara's question in the chat too about hosting a festival. I don't think that you can actually run one through the VIMS tool past the World Festival for FLL Challenge, which would be the middle of April. So I think that you would have to host your expo because they shut down the system completely. We figured that out after we went to Worlds. For challenge, they shut down the system like a week after Worlds. So I don't know that you could actually run this year's festival past that like November 13, 14, 15 region. And I'll link my 9-week schedule in the chat. And if you have issues accessing it, just request access and I'll give you access after I get my kids to karate.
And just for clarification, we've talked a lot about the VIM system. For those of you that aren't aware of what that is, that's how the international mothership first keeps track of volunteers at each one of these events. You have to go through your screening protocol, you have to be invited, and then you ultimately have to be assigned by the either tournament director, who then assigns the volunteer coordinator, and then the volunteer coordinator will be able to assign all those volunteer roles. So, I mean, in theory, you could do a festival and not go through VIMS. That would not be a official first event. That would just be kind of a local run festival.
Yeah, kind of the VIMS is the volunteer management system. So, but one of the things is all the volunteers, especially in the key positions, you have to make sure a background check, and they don't get through the system until they're background checked to assign into a role. So that helps you with that youth protection. And we had a question in the chat about whether to build a table or not for the maps. The answer is no need to do that, but having some type of organizational things is gallon-sized bags, Tupper or whatever for the models would be advisable. Just, I'm assuming, Jen, that your response there is more about not losing parts and breaking.
No matter what, those models will break, but at least they'll all be contained within the plastic bag. And then they're semi easier to put back together. But it is a good opportunity to teach the kids to build sturdy.
Although Jen, is this year's model smaller than last year's?
No, it's worse.
Oh, it's worse. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the turntable stage, similar to the one in the corner for the challenge mat. And from what I can tell, it's not super well put to, like, it will be difficult to transport. So that's why I'm saying, like, just plastic bag each piece of your model. It'll be a lot easier, and it'll keep your sanity a little bit more as you're putting it up, taking it down, putting it up, taking it down, because many of us are borrowing space, right? For Explore. So likely it's in a classroom or the library or something like that. So no matter what, you have to have some kind of travel ready system so that you can get the parts there and back in a reasonably decent condition.
Yeah. I'm just recollecting the Explore festival that I went to last year, where the teams were, I don't want to say struggling, but let's just say it was a challenge getting their model from the pits to the classroom where the reviewing was.
So a lot of teams, well, at least what we did when it was a little different is we took a dresser drawer, like a small one, and then we would carry that around. And then some we got a little bit more creative later on and cut down a 4x8 board similar to what we use for the challenge tables and use that as a platform. We've also used our poster as a platform to carry those models from place to place, but certainly it's part of an endurance test and a stress test to get that model from the pit to, well, first to get the model from your house to the area, and then to get it from the pit to the judging room. So watch out for train tracks. And I would suggest, having a discussion with the kids about how high they want to build it, or potentially even putting the 12-inch restriction that I believe we have in challenge, just so that they don't build it so high that you can't transport it easily. There are no restrictions on the Explorer for how high or how big the model can be, but for your sanity, it might make sense. As we had a flying eagle once, and the flying eagle's tower fell in the parking lot, and there were tears and frantic parents helping the kids put it back together. So just personal experience.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes sense to have them do a drop test on it or something equivalent. We've had them do that before just to make sure that it's reasonably put together in such a way that it won't completely obliterate itself before they go into the judging room. And then Mary Pat had a question about for events. So yes, if you want to see a team actually being judged, you have to get permission from that team to go into the room. Would you still be able to see other teams' projects outside of the judging area? For Explorer, there isn't really a project. There's a poster and a model, but yes, you can see their poster and their model, and you can ask them, the kids like to show off, right? So they'll show you how their project moves and stuff like that. So you can still see all that in the pit area. The pit in this case is like half of a 4x8 table. It's nothing like significant, right? So you guys don't have a ton of space to spread out depending on how big the event is. So, the best we used to do was bring like a plastic tablecloth, a bin to put coats underneath the table, which is basically the bin that we brought the model in. And then some, fruit roll-ups for the kids in case they get hungry. So it's I think you just kind of figure out how to fit within the space that you have. But yes, other teams do come up to see other teams' models, even the ones at the event. We just ask that they don't touch it. Just to make sure that stuff doesn't walk off or get broken.
And I'll just add one other point, just as we're coordinating all these festivals, something that Jen had brought up. Her festival is capped at 10 teams. There are other festivals that may have capacity up to 24 teams, which would obviously be, you know, and be still be a great experience, but potentially different just based on the number, the size, and the chaos that ensues with it. But we'll know more about that as we start coordinating these festivals through the fall and then eventually the spring. Right. Any other thoughts, questions, issues? We'll still have hopefully one Explore call, Zoom call a month. Challenge doesn't have to occupy every Monday.
So Rebecca asked a question in chat. If a company helped fund an Explore team, is there a way to show their logos? Does it make any sense at this stage?
So we always put those on the back of our shirts, although that can be a little dicey as we learned. Some of those logos are hard to get on shirts. So typically what we would do is we would put them on the posters. We put the company logo and the company name on the poster, like a thank you to our sponsors type thing, or like a little like picture frame with the company information in it, if you do get a sponsor. But we have had sponsors in the past, Rebecca, that have been semi-consistent. So I think it is possible for you to get funding from a corporate type of company that actually funds Explorers, or from a local company. And that's how we've dealt with it in the past. But you can't stick their logo in your model because it's not a Lego.
Now, if you're trying to put logos on shirts, get the company to give you their monochrome logo. They should have a black and white logo, and that'll be a lot easier to get on there. And now some of them are still not detailed, sufficient. They're too detailed sometimes to render well into screen print, but that may help you with getting team logos. And then funding wise, yes, March, have your parents, the team members talk to to their employers. A lot of times an employer might be willing to help out. Sometimes it's a matter of some companies like Rockwell and GE, really more matter of they want a volunteer coaching that team to be able to get those kinds of funding.
Make sure you're checking with your sponsors as well if they have certain requirements to use their logos, because some have very specific requirements, specific
yes.
colors of red or blue. We had one year on our FLL team had 3 different colors of red that had to be printed. Which of course it's a different color for each one, and you pay more for stuff. So I definitely second the monotone coloring. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, and sometimes you get away with the iron-on transfers. You can
Yeah.
print it out on a printer and iron it on as a way to alleviate that.
Just one more thing real quick. Somebody asked earlier about the web page, or about the YouTube channel. It's at Wisconsin FLL. It's a YouTube channel, and have challenge and explore videos up there, as well as all the previous season ones.
And it is up to the teams to be responsible for their shirts made. And again, they're not a requirement. Teams tend to do it. It's kind of their fun team uniform. Usually the kids, might have a hand in laying it out or whatever, or at least doing the whatever, helping pick what's on it, so they get to show that off as well.
I'm gonna say thanks to Jen, but she's gone. Thank you, Jen.
It's speaking of trademarks and logos, somewhere on the Slack channel, I can't remember if it was Challenge or Explore. Somebody was asking about all the materials that are on the First Inspires website, the resources. Do you have to buy it from First, or can you print it off yourself? And the bottom line answer is, as long as it's accessible to the public on the First website, you can print it off yourself. Please just don't start messing around with the Lego or the First, emblems, logos, so on and so forth, mixing and matching that, whatever could potentially cross the line. We don't want to, but certainly all the materials that are publicly available, you don't have to buy them. You can print them off all you want.
Yeah.
Just
kind of follow on the
just don't edit or alter them as they're, presented.
Yeah, Jay kind of alluded to colors. Craig's talking about the logos. Even in the case of First, they do have a branding guide on how their acceptable use of their logos. So places do care. And some companies won't let you print theirs. Like if you happen to have someone like Harley, where that brand matters in the logo, that's worth money to them. They don't necessarily want you doing it. So find out from them how to approach that. And there was a question in the chat as well during the week about what comes with the Explorer when you purchase it. You get both the season kit, and you also get a 1 liter's guide and a number of engineering notebooks that come with it. Those are shipped separately, so you get the books in one envelope, and you get the box with the Legos in another.
And keep in mind, that's just the start. You are allowed to use any Lego components to add to the model or display whatever you're putting together. So.
Also, I guess we should mention that on the Slack channel as well, there is a Explore channel on there. So I assume most people either got here from the Slack channel or through the newsletter. And I think the Slack address is in the newsletter, Craig, is that correct?
Well, if you aren't on the Slack channel and you would like to be added to it, there's a link there to do that.
Okay.
Or just send an email to FLLteams@badgerbots.org.
A question in the chat: other than the cost for the kit and the entry fee of the festival, are there any other required expenses for Explore? There tends to be other expenses. They tend to be, anything you need for your poster board and things like that. The shirts, those are the kinds of expenses. Some groups might include snacks and part of your expenses and how you handle that. But other than that, I'm not aware of any additional.
Well, there is the registration with First. Was that included with the
Well, entry fee would be, you'd have the 2 entry fees. You'd have the first one, which they might be considering cost of the kit. Because in Explore, it's 1 fee. And then the festival fee.
So at First Inspires, there is a page. The team registration at First is $125. The Lego Education Spike Essential, $320. And then the local Wisconsin entry fee into a festival, that's what the $25 would be. all the other expenses that Brian was referring to is up to the individual teams.
Just for clarification, that's firstinspires.org, not.
Of course. Thank you. Yep.
And I assume that everyone that's here has been that far so far. Never know who's watching the video.
Right. Yep.
Any other questions people have?
So Julia, after we get done with the Explore session, we're going to take any questions that they stick on again if you have to. If you
I'm here. I'm here for the long haul, baby.
don't.
I got a research going in the back, and then when everyone needs me, I'll pop in like the shining hero I try to be.
All right.
So we'll give a countdown of any last questions on Explore. 3, 2, 1. All right, awesome. Again, video is going up on YouTube. You can reach out to me at FLLteams@badgerbots.org. And of course, those of you that have been on the Slack channel, it's a great resources to reach out to the coaches who actually know what they're doing. They've been very generous with their time and wisdom. So I would encourage you to continue to use that. Thursday again, we'll have the challenge schedule out, and then hopefully by the next newsletter, we'll have some specific dates for Explore festivals. All right. Well, Explore coaches, thank you all. And I guess for now, we'll open it up to any challenge questions if there are out there. And if not, we'll call it an evening. That's fine.
Craig, this is Amjad.
Yep.
It's not a question essentially, but more of an information that I wanted to pass. One of the things that come up usually is for the challenge coaches as their teams graduate to first tech challenge, and how do they get to mentoring and learning about it. There is a new mentor network being formed exclusively for that reason for incoming new coaches to FTC. So as FLL coaches that you want to graduate and look at FTC, there's a new resource that's going to come up. We're starting next week over the weekend. There's a blog on firstinspireswi.org that talks about it, and I will put the link of that on the chat. We're just getting started, but it's exclusively targeted at old coaches for FTC coming together to train new ones so that we can start more teams.
I would imagine there will be strong demand for that service.
I hope so.
Okay, and just so you guys know, there will not be a call next Monday, correct?
That is correct.
Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day, everybody.
So we will return back to you guys on is 11th. Then FLL challenge.
Correct. That will be, yep. Focus on challenge. All right. Well, then let us call it an evening. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And for those of you watching on YouTube,
Thank you, everyone.
have a great season.
Bye. Feel free to use the Slack if you have any questions. We're always here to help. They're already gone. It's fine.
Did you get that on tape, Jay?
I got her.
Okay,
Yes. Good.